Most people don't realize this, but the life you are living right now is not created by your big decisions. It is created by the small thoughts you repeat every single day. You didn't wake up one morning and suddenly become stuck. You didn't suddenly lose confidence. You didn't suddenly stop growing. It happened slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. One thought after another. One reaction after another. One excuse that felt harmless at that moment. And this is dangerous. Because what grows silently feels normal. Let me tell you something honest. If your life feels heavy, confusing, or directionless, it is not because you are lazy. It is not because you lack talent. It is not because the world is unfair to you. It is because your thinking has been repeating the same patterns for too long. Most people think change requires motivation, but motivation is loud and short-lived. Thinking is quiet and permanent. Your thoughts decide what you tolerate, what you chase, what you avoid, and what you become. A man who thinks he has time wastes years. A man who thinks he is not enough stays small. A man who thinks deeply changes everything without making noise. This is not a motivational idea, this is reality. Let me share a small story. There was a boy who was always preparing to start, preparing to improve, preparing to become confident. He watched videos, he saved quotes, he imagined a better version of himself. But nothing changed. Why? Because his thinking never changed. Every time he failed, he said, "I'll try again later." Every time he felt uncomfortable, he escaped. Every time life tested him, he reacted emotionally. He was busy, but not progressing, active, but not aware. And this is where most people are trapped. They confuse movement with growth. Real growth starts when you slow down and observe your own mind. Now listen carefully. If you are watching this channel, you are not just here for motivation. You are here because you want to understand life, not decorate it. And while you are doing that, something powerful is happening. You are improving your English naturally, not by force, but by listening, understanding, and thinking deeply. This is how real fluency is built. Not by memorizing rules, but by absorbing meaning. At the same time, you are improving yourself. That combination is rare. Language improves when thinking improves, and thinking improves when knowledge becomes clear. This is why knowledge matters. Not random information, not fake positivity, not sugar-coated advice. Real knowledge. Knowledge that helps you. See patterns, understand consequences, think long-term, control reactions, make better decisions. Without knowledge, effort becomes blind. Without thinking, hard work becomes wasted energy. Most people work hard, but think shallow. That is why they stay stuck. Better thinking creates better outcomes even with less effort. Let me explain this simply. Two people face the same problem. One reacts emotionally, the other pauses and thinks. One complains, the other observes. One repeats the same mistake, the other adjusts slightly. After 1 year, their lives look completely different. Not because of luck, but because of thinking. Thinking is not overthinking. Thinking is clarity. When you think clearly, you stop reacting fast. You stop trusting every emotion. You stop chasing what looks good but feels empty. You start choosing wisely. This is why most people avoid thinking deeply, because thinking forces responsibility. If you understand your patterns, you cannot blame others anymore. If you see your mistakes clearly, excuses disappear. And the ego doesn't like that. So people distract themselves. Phones, noise, entertainment, fake productivity, anything to avoid silence. Because silence reveals truth. And truth is uncomfortable before it becomes freeing. Let me tell you something personal. Growth became real for me when I stopped asking, "How do I become better fast?" and started asking, "Why do I keep repeating the same mistakes?" That question changes everything. Not overnight, but permanently. You don't need a new personality. You don't need extreme discipline. You need awareness. Awareness of your reactions, your excuses, your emotional triggers, your habits, your thinking patterns. Once you see them, you can change them. Before that, you are just guessing. Most people try to change actions without changing thinking. That never lasts. Because actions come from thinking. If your thinking stays the same, your life returns to the same place. This is why knowledge is power. Not because it makes you feel smart, but because it gives you control. Control over your emotions, your time, your attention, your direction. And control creates confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need approval. The kind that doesn't panic when things go wrong. The kind that grows slowly but never collapses. This channel exists for that reason. Not to hype you, not to impress you, but to help you think better. Because when thinking improves, everything else follows. Your discipline improves, your English improves, your decisions improve, your future improves. And you don't even notice it at first. Others will notice before you do. They will say you are calmer, more clear, more focused. But inside, you will know something deeper. You are no longer living on autopilot. You are choosing. And that is where real power begins. Let's go a little deeper now, because this is where most people misunderstand growth. You don't change your life by suddenly becoming strong. You change your life by becoming aware. Strength without awareness becomes ego. Effort without awareness becomes exhaustion. Knowledge without awareness becomes noise. Awareness is what turns information into wisdom. And while you are listening to this, something else important is happening. You are listening calmly, understanding meaning, and following ideas naturally. This is exactly how you start to speak English like a native speaker. Not by forcing grammar, but by thinking in the language, feeling the flow, and understanding the emotions behind the words. When you grow your thinking, your English grows with you, naturally, smoothly, without pressure. Now let's come back to awareness. Most people live their entire life reacting. Someone speaks badly. They react. Something goes wrong. They react. They feel insecure. They react. They feel bored. They react. Reaction feels automatic. But reaction is not intelligence. Reaction is habit. And habits once formed control your future. Let me explain this with a simple example. Imagine two people who both fail at something important. One immediately says, "I'm unlucky. This always happens to me. I'm not meant for this." The other stays quiet and asks, "What exactly went wrong? What part was in my control? What can I adjust next time?" The event is the same. The future is not. One repeats the cycle. The other breaks it. This is why better thinking matters more than motivation. Motivation pushes you forward. Thinking guides you forward. Without thinking, motivation runs you into walls. Most people don't fail because they are weak. They fail because they never pause to examine their patterns. They repeat the same reactions, the same excuses, the same emotional decisions. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Let me tell you something uncomfortable but true. If your life feels stuck, it is because your thinking has not evolved. Your environment may change. Your goals may change. But if your thinking stays the same, your results stay the same. This is why some people escape bad situations and still create new problems. The place changed. The mindset didn't. Awareness fixes this. Awareness forces you to slow down. And slowing down is scary in a fast world, because silence exposes truth. In silence, you notice why you procrastinate, why you avoid discomfort, why you react emotionally, why you seek validation. Most people avoid silence because they don't want to see themselves clearly. But clarity is freedom. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who always felt busy. His days were full. His phone was always active. His mind was never quiet. But at night, he felt empty. No real progress. No real peace. One day, he decided to change only one thing. He stopped reacting immediately. When something triggered him, he waited. When emotions rose, he observed. When confusion appeared, he wrote instead of escaping. At first, it felt uncomfortable. His mind felt noisy. But slowly, something changed. He started noticing patterns. He noticed that he reacted most when his ego felt threatened. He avoided tasks that challenged his identity. He wasted time when he felt uncertain. These realizations hurt, but they healed him. Because once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. And once you see your patterns, you can change them. This is where real growth begins. Not in motivation, not in inspiration, in honest self-observation. Most people want results without self-confrontation. That never works. Growth requires humility. Humility to say, I don't know everything. I might be wrong. I need to adjust. Ego says, I'm fine the way I am. Growth says, I can be better. Now let's talk about why people resist better thinking. Because better thinking removes excuses. If you think clearly, you cannot blame your past, other people, circumstances, luck. Clear thinking gives you responsibility. And responsibility feels heavy at first, but responsibility is power. When you take responsibility, you gain control. Control over your reactions, your habits, your direction. Without responsibility, life controls you. This is why many people prefer comfort over clarity. Comfort says, it's not your fault. Clarity says, you can do better. Comfort feels good today. Clarity builds a future. Another important truth. Most people confuse intelligence with information. They know many things. They understand concepts. They watch educational content, but they don't apply. Thinking is not about knowing. Thinking is about using. If knowledge does not change your behavior, it is useless. Real thinking shows up in how you respond to stress, how you manage your time, how you choose long-term over short-term, how you control emotions. This is why growth looks boring from the outside. No drama, no loud announcements, no sudden transformation, just quiet discipline. Day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice. And this is also why most people quit, because there is no applause. But the reward comes later, in confidence, in clarity, in self-respect. Let me say this clearly. If you learn to think better, you don't need motivation. You don't need someone to push you. You move naturally toward better choices, because your mind becomes aligned with growth. And as your thinking improves, everything improves with it. Your communication improves, your English improves, your decisions improve, your future improves. You start speaking more clearly, not just in language, but in life. This is why learning through listening like this is powerful. You are not just hearing words. You are absorbing structure, tone, rhythm, and meaning. That is how native-level understanding develops. And at the same time, you are upgrading your mindset. That combination changes lives quietly. Let me leave you with this thought before we move forward. You don't need to become someone else. You need to become more aware of who you already are. Once awareness enters, change becomes inevitable. Now let's talk about something people rarely admit. Most people are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of seeing themselves clearly. Failure hurts once. Self-awareness changes you forever. That's why people avoid it. When you see your own patterns clearly, you cannot escape anymore. You cannot say, I didn't know. You cannot say, this just happened. You know exactly why it happened. And that kind of truth is uncomfortable. But it is also powerful. Let me explain this simply. Every person has an internal system running quietly in the background. That system decides what you focus on, what you ignore, what you react to, what you avoid, what you repeat. Most people never examine this system. They live on autopilot. They wake up, they react, they consume, they sleep, and days pass, then months, then years. Nothing changes, but they feel tired. This tiredness doesn't come from work. It comes from misalignment. Your mind wants growth. Your habits choose comfort. This inner conflict drains energy. That is why even rest doesn't feel refreshing anymore. Let me tell you a quiet truth. Peace does not come from having less problems. Peace comes from understanding yourself. A person who understands his own mind can walk through chaos calmly. A person who doesn't understand himself feels stressed even in comfort. Most people try to fix their life externally. New routines, new goals, new environments, But the internal system stays the same, so the same problems return, just in different forms. This is why self-awareness is non-negotiable. Let me tell you about a man named Arjun. Arjun was intelligent, he worked hard, he was disciplined, but something was always missing. He felt restless, unsatisfied, always chasing the next thing. Promotion didn't help, money didn't help, achievements didn't help. One day he stopped chasing. He didn't quit life. He quit running from himself. He started observing, not judging, not fixing, just observing. He noticed he felt anxious when he wasn't productive. He tied his self-worth to results. He avoided slowing down because silence scared him. These realizations didn't feel good, but they explained everything. His restlessness was not ambition. It was insecurity. His busyness was not discipline. It was avoidance. This kind of clarity changes behavior naturally. When Arjun noticed himself chasing validation, he stopped chasing as much. When he noticed emotional reactions, he paused more often. When he noticed fear, he didn't fight it. He understood it. And slowly, life became lighter. Not easier, but clearer. This is the power of awareness. Awareness doesn't remove problems. It removes confusion. And confusion is the real enemy. Most people are not weak. They are confused. Confused about what they want, why they feel the way they feel, why they repeat mistakes, why success doesn't satisfy them. Clarity ends confusion, and clarity comes from honest observation. Here's something important. Self-awareness is not self-criticism. Many people misunderstand this. Self-criticism says, I'm not good enough. I always fail. There's something wrong with me. Self-awareness says, this is what I do. This is why I do it. This is how it affects my life. One destroys confidence. The other builds it. When you stop attacking yourself and start understanding yourself, growth becomes possible. Most people either defend themselves or attack themselves. Very few observe themselves. Observation is neutral, and neutrality creates space for change. Let's talk about emotional control. People think emotional control means suppressing emotions. That's wrong. Suppression creates pressure. Pressure eventually explodes. Control means understanding. When you understand why an emotion appears, it loses power. Anger often hides fear. Jealousy often hides insecurity. Laziness often hides overwhelm. When you label emotions clearly, they stop controlling you. But most people never label. They just react. Reaction strengthens patterns. Pause weakens them. This is why slowing down is essential. Not slowing your goals, slowing your reactions. Fast reactions feel strong, but they are usually weak. They come from habit, not intelligence. A calm response is powerful, not because it looks impressive, but because it is intentional. Intentional living is rare, and rarity creates value. Let me explain something else. Your environment shapes you, but your mind interprets your environment. Two people can live in the same place and experience completely different lives. One feels trapped, one feels challenged, one feels unlucky, one feels responsible. The difference is not circumstance, it is interpretation. Interpretation comes from thinking. Better thinking gives you better interpretations. Better interpretations give you better actions. This is why thinking is leverage. One small shift in thinking can save years of suffering. But thinking requires effort, not physical effort, mental honesty. Mental honesty means asking difficult questions. Why do I avoid this? Why does this trigger me? What am I afraid of losing? What am I protecting? Most people don't want these answers because answers demand change, and change threatens comfort. But comfort without growth becomes silent misery. Let me say something important. You don't need to fix everything at once. That mindset destroys people. You only need to notice one pattern, one reaction, one habit, one thought loop. Change that, and momentum starts. Momentum creates motivation naturally, not fake motivation, real momentum. The kind that comes from progress. Most people wait to feel ready. But readiness comes after action, not before. Awareness gives you direction. Action gives you confidence. Confidence is not personality. It is evidence. Evidence that you can trust yourself. Self-trust is built slowly. By doing what you say, pausing before reacting, choosing long-term over short-term, observing instead of escaping. These things look small, but they change identity. And identity determines destiny. This is why self-awareness is the foundation. Without it, everything else is temporary. With it, even small effort becomes powerful. You don't need to rush this process. Rushing comes from fear. Growth comes from patience. Patience does not mean waiting. It means staying consistent without panic. If you can master this, your life will not be loud, but it will be strong. Now let's talk about something that quietly controls most lives. Decision-making. Not big decisions, not dramatic moments, but small daily decisions that feel insignificant. What you tolerate, what you ignore, what you delay, what you repeat. These decisions build your future silently. Most people believe their life will change when something big happens. A new opportunity, a new job, a new relationship, a new environment. But life rarely changes that way. Life changes when your standards change. Standards decide what stays in your life and what leaves. If your standards are low, chaos feels normal. If your standards rise, clarity follows. Let me explain this carefully. Your standards are not what you say you want. Your standards are what you accept repeatedly. If you accept disrespect, it becomes normal. If you accept distraction, focus disappears. If you accept excuses, progress stops. Most people don't choose their standards consciously. They inherit them from fear, comfort, and habit. And that's dangerous, because what you tolerate today shapes who you become tomorrow. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who always said he wanted peace. But his life was noisy, not because of the world, because of his choices. He stayed in conversations that drained him. He consumed content that distracted him. He delayed important work. He avoided difficult conversations. Individually, these choices felt small. Together, they destroyed clarity. One day, he asked himself a simple question. Why am I allowing this? That question changed everything. He realized he wasn't unlucky. He was undisciplined with his standards. So he changed one thing at a time. He stopped responding immediately to everything. He limited unnecessary interactions. He protected his mornings. He respected his own time. Nothing dramatic happened, but his mind became quieter. And in that quiet, something powerful appeared. Direction. Clarity always comes after boundaries. Most people think boundaries are rude. They are wrong. Boundaries are self-respect. If you don't respect your time, no one else will. If you don't protect your focus, it will be stolen. If you don't choose deliberately, life will choose for you. Let me say this clearly. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is freedom. Freedom from distraction. Freedom from regret. Freedom from repeating the same mistakes. But discipline requires standards, and standards require courage. Because when you raise your standards, some people get uncomfortable, some habits must die, some comforts disappear, and ego resists this. Ego wants approval. Growth requires separation, not isolation. Separation from what no longer aligns. This is why growth often feels lonely at first. You are not becoming arrogant. You are becoming selective. Selectivity creates peace. Now let's talk about another hidden problem. Most people live in reaction mode. Their mood depends on messages, news, opinions, external events. They don't lead their mind. They follow it. This creates emotional instability. One good thing happens. They feel high. One bad thing happens. They collapse. This is exhausting. Emotional maturity means stability, not numbness, not suppression. Stability. Stability comes from perspective. Perspective comes from thinking long-term. When you zoom out, emotions lose power. You realize this moment will pass, this feeling is temporary, this problem is solvable. But when you zoom in emotionally, everything feels like the end. Most people zoom in. Wise people zoom out. This is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you train it. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you strengthen it. Slowly, your default state changes. You become harder to disturb, not cold, centered. This is a dangerous level of calm, because calm people see clearly, and people who see clearly are hard to manipulate. Let me talk about consistency. Consistency is not intensity. Most people fail because they try to change everything at once. They burn bright, then they burn out. Consistency is boring, and that's why it works. Small actions done daily reshape identity. Reading a little, thinking a little, reflecting a little. Over time, these small actions rewire your mind. The problem is, results are delayed, and humans hate delayed rewards, so they quit early. But those who stay patient win quietly. Let me tell you something important. Your future self is watching you. Every excuse you make today, your future self pays for. Every discipline you practice today, your future self benefits from. You are either making life easier for your future self or harder. There is no neutral. Most people live only for today. That is why tomorrow becomes heavy. Wise people live for tomorrow without ignoring today. Balance is intelligence. Another reason people stay stuck is overthinking without execution. Thinking is powerful, but thinking without action becomes fear. The goal is not perfect clarity. The goal is enough clarity to move. You don't need certainty. You need direction. Direction comes from values. When you know what matters, decisions become easier. Ask yourself, does this move me forward? Does this align with who I want to become? If not, let it go. Life becomes simple when values are clear. Not easy, simple. Simple does not mean effortless. It means focused. Focus removes noise. Noise creates confusion. Confusion creates anxiety. That is why focused people appear calm. They are not better than others. They are clearer. Let me say this gently. You don't need to rush becoming successful. You need to stop rushing your thinking. Speed without clarity creates mistakes. Clarity with patience creates progress. Every powerful person you admire has mastered this. They think before they move. They choose before they react. They pause before they speak. This is not weakness. This is control. And control creates confidence. Quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything. If you can learn this, your life will not be loud, but it will be deeply stable, and stability is the foundation of everything meaningful. Now we come to the part most people ignore, but this is where everything connects. Identity. Not the identity you show the world, the identity you live with when no one is watching. Your habits don't come from discipline. They come from identity. Your reactions don't come from situations. They come from identity. Your consistency doesn't come from motivation. It comes from identity. Most people try to change habits without changing identity. That never lasts. If you see yourself as someone who gives up easily, effort will feel heavy. If you see yourself as someone who avoids discomfort, discipline will feel painful. If you see yourself as someone who reacts emotionally, calm will feel unnatural. So let me ask you something important. Who do you believe you are? Not what you say, what you prove daily. Identity is built through evidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, identity strengthens. Every time you break it, identity weakens. This is why small actions matter more than big intentions. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who always told himself he was disciplined, but his actions said otherwise. He delayed important work. He avoided discomfort. He reacted emotionally. He waited for motivation. Deep down, he knew the truth. So instead of lying to himself, he changed his approach. He stopped trying to be disciplined. He started trying to be honest. Honest about his weaknesses, his excuses, his patterns. Every day, he focused on one thing only: doing what he said he would do, even if it was small, even if no one noticed. At first, it felt insignificant, but something changed. He started trusting himself, and self-trust is dangerous, because once you trust yourself, you stop negotiating with weakness. You stop saying, just this once. I'll do it tomorrow. It's not a big deal. You act. Not because you feel like it, because that's who you are becoming. This is how identity shifts. Quietly, slowly, permanently. Most people wait for confidence before action. That's backward. Action creates confidence. Confidence is not loud, it is calm. Calm comes from alignment. Alignment between what you think, what you say, what you do. When these three match, life feels lighter, not easier, clearer, and clarity removes anxiety. Anxiety comes from inner conflict. When your mind wants growth but your actions choose comfort, tension appears. Resolve the conflict, and peace follows. This is why consistency feels powerful. Consistency proves identity. Let me explain something important. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Goals are wishes, systems are reality. If your system supports distraction, discipline fails. If your system supports clarity, growth becomes natural. Your system is built from daily routines, environment, standards, thinking patterns. Change the system, and results follow. Most people chase outcomes. Wise people build systems. Systems don't rely on motivation. They rely on structure. And structure protects you on bad days. Bad days are not the problem. Unprepared days are. Everyone feels tired. Everyone feels lazy. Everyone feels uncertain. The difference is how they respond. One reacts emotionally. The other follows structure. Structure is freedom. Now let's talk about patience. Patience is not waiting without action. Patience is acting without panic. Most people panic when results are slow. They change direction too quickly. They doubt themselves too easily. They quit too early. But growth is delayed. Seeds grow underground before appearing above the surface. If you dig them up every day to check progress, they die. Life works the same way. Your effort today may not show results tomorrow, but it is shaping you. And who you become matters more than what you get, because what you get can be lost. Who you become stays. Let me say something honest. If you focus only on success, you will always feel behind. If you focus on growth, success becomes a side effect. Growth improves your thinking, your decisions, your communication, your confidence. And life responds to that. Opportunities follow clarity. Respect follows self-respect. Nothing magical. Just cause and effect. Another truth most people avoid. You cannot grow while lying to yourself. Self-deception feels comfortable, but it blocks progress. You must be honest about why you procrastinate, why you avoid discomfort, why you seek validation, why you react emotionally. Honesty is painful at first, but pain from truth heals. Pain from avoidance repeats. Choose wisely. Let me remind you of something. You don't need to become perfect. Perfection is ego. You need to become consistent. Consistency beats intensity. Consistency beats talent. Consistency beats motivation. Small steps taken daily outperform big plans taken rarely. This is boring advice. That's why it works. Now let's talk about the long term. 1 year of intentional living can change everything. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you become capable. Capable of handling problems. Capable of thinking clearly. Capable of staying calm under pressure. Capability creates confidence. And confidence creates freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from comparison. Freedom from external validation. You stop asking, am I good enough? And start knowing, I am improving. That's enough. Let me say this gently. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are just becoming aware. And awareness is the beginning of all real change. If you stay patient, honest, and consistent, your life will change. Quietly, naturally, inevitably. No drama, no shortcuts, just progress. And now, before we end, let me say this from the heart. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If this kind of content helps you think better, grow slowly, and improve yourself while learning naturally, please subscribe to the channel. It truly supports the work, and it helps me continue making videos like this for you. We'll keep growing together, step by step,